Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome back to the Shadowlands Alpha First Pass First Impressions coverage. This is going to be the Retribution Paladin, and I was just being flung around on a divine storm right there. Well, we'll have a lot of baseline adjustments, no talent adjustments, except for the new ones being added and things that have been removed. But Retribution plays like Retribution Paladin. And actually, I would argue some of the most healthy leaving one expansion into the next, and little certain nuggets from BFA are staying with you as optional pieces here and there for Retribution inside of Shadowlands. So of course we're not doing covenant testing, we're not looking at soul binds, can't really look at conduits right now, so we don't know how that's going to all connect and put everything together. So we'll see, but that's for like the beta testing period. But for right now, stuff looks pretty good, I would say. I've definitely dibble dabbled in the Retribution Paladin in the past. I just recently actually leveled up my Retribution Paladin ult, which I did mop challenge modes on back in the day. So I have the crazy Power Ranger armor, and it feels, I'm not feeling that too different. Things a little slower because, you know, gear and whatnot compared to essences and things, but no, it actually was pretty good. I have enjoyed my time playing so far today. And if you are looking forward to continue to enjoy your time going forward, but there might be some little things that might need some upgrades, down below, you're going to find a link to, in the description box or in the top pin, I am a Corsair and Elgato partner. If you need some awesome Corsair gear or some Elgato bits, if you want a new awesome mouse to keybind all your things and stuff on the side. I actually had a viewer just today talking to me about how they're getting used to the new scimitar because they want more keybinding control for Shadowlands. You can support what I do here, the show, the stream, and everything in between. I am a K70 fan myself for the new keyboards. If you're looking for that, highly recommend. It's real good. I do the MX silent keys because you don't hear them on stream, but you can get 10% off your whole order on Corsair peripherals, Elgato gear, and free standard shipping, and help me out to keep doing what I'm doing right here and get yourself something awesome also as well. So links down below. Thank you for those that are supporting what I do here on the internet and hanging out with me during this crazy alpha time. And Retribution Paladin. Where's my notes? Returning spells. The big one is right there. Blessing of Sacrifice. It's back. So, collective Pog champs in the chat. It is back. It has returned. And it's the 30% of the damage, or it reduces the damage of the target by 30%, and you suffer 75% of that. It works out to be like 22.5. It rounds to 23% of the damage taken by the target goes into your face. So with this coming back, though, you have the option to do sack shields or shield of sacrifice or blessing of vengeance, whatever you want to call it. And in the footage today, there was lots of talk about it. And actually the dungeon footage, the testing VOD, all linked down below, as well as everything else from this expansion and the past two in the channel guide. Wordup and I were talking about this a little bit today, and he had a really good point. If you want to go listen to that, of course, it's the end of the dungeon VOD. We were talking about sort of DRs and how the Paladin obviously has lay on hands and immunity, and it can heal itself, and it has Shield of Vengeance, which you used for damage a lot of the time. And it's a choice, right? It's a choice that hopefully isn't one you always do, because Retribution Paladin shouldn't need to pop their 2-minute cooldown soft DR meaning it's only an absorb, to do, in this case, 3,000 damage, that's 3 Templar's Verdicts, non-crits, non-procs, non-judgment, which not going to happen normally. So it really isn't that much of a deal, but it's still there. So you can combine Blessing of Sacrifice with Shield of Vengeance. It is a thing. It is definitely a thing. Hammer of Wrath is also baseline, which if I can remember where the damn spells are in this crazy toolkit, because everyone there is up here. Hammer of Wrath, it is only usable under the execute window on targets. Generates 1 holy power, of course. There is a rank 2 of it where it'll always be usable during Avenging Wrath or Crusade. So that is also coming to you baseline. You've got Sense Evil coming in here, which is your aura on the map to sense evil. You've got Retribution Aura coming back. We'll get into auras here in a moment. This just extends the duration of the Retribution Aura proc. You've got Concentration Aura coming. You've got Turn Evil that came back. I tested this today on some mobs at the Necrotic Wake, and your mileage may vary, but I'm scared this is going to be the, oh cool, I get my, CC back, where I get to, undead, aberrations, demons, and the flee / disorient is a little misleading because they run so far. I feared a skeleton literally across almost the entire front half of the outside of the dungeon, like 100 yards away. And of course, when Turn Evil fell off, he aggroed things and pulled more stuff. So that's a thing. You can sort of force the direction because the initial Turn Evil will make them run away from you. You can like force things into corners potentially for CC so they don't run into other things. But there you go. It's silly. To repeat, of course, from the Prop Paladin video, and of course I'll go over this in the Holy Paladin video as well, it currently does not work on Demon Hunter Metamorphosis. They don't count as demons, even though it says in the tooltip that they transform into a hellish demon. Whatever. It does, however, it does work on Lichborn Death Knights. But sure, Death Knight can obviously put up AMS before they Lichborn, so you can't. They'll be immune to the effect and it'll go on cooldown here. But just to be sure. Again, auras are also back. So you do have your Crusader Aura, which does have an animation for what it's worth. Didn't have one before, I suppose. And then you have Devo Aura, which is a flat 3% all damage taken reduced. So magic and physical. And Ret Aura. The Retribution Passive for Retribution Paladin is now gone. It is now rolled into the Aura. When a party or raid member dies within 40 yards, you will gain Avenging Wrath for 8 seconds. Or for 12 seconds once you get, leveled up. Very PvP focused. If you have 2 paladins in your raid, I would imagine that your Holy Paladin will probably run Devo Aura, or your tank will run Devo Aura. And the Retribution Paladin, for like progression, it's a thing. You'll run Retribution Aura in case someone dies, and you'll get 8 seconds of wings, or 12 seconds of wings, or whatever. It's a helpful little nugget. It's not going to be, obviously, a ton of your damage. It's not... There are things, Wordup talks about today is like planned deaths, right? You can just have a healer die and then you can keep blasting. Maybe I don't know. Everyone's gonna try to do weird degenerate things with whatever in this game. It could be a thing. It's mostly gonna be really crazy in PvP now. Only 40 yards, of course. But you could see a lot of wings uptime in battlegrounds and things of that nature because people will be dying all around you if you're within like a big scuffle. And that's the whole kind of point. That's where Ret will definitely be scary. Of course, it'll work for Prot and Holy Paladin as well. But in raids and dungeons, it'll be a little bit more niche, I suppose. This does mean that also you lost your heart. Is it Heart of the Crusader? They moved the passive movement speed, I believe. Yeah, Heart of the Crusader passive is removed. So the 20% movement speed has to be, it's now on your aura, which means that your divine steeds will be a little bit slower in combat because you won't have the additional 20% movement speed all the time. So there's that. It's not even discernibly noticeable in here. It's only 20%, but it does make you travel a little farther in that duration. But that is gone. Again, you wanted sacrifice back, so you got to make your own sacrifices in your toolkit. And that's it. Yeah, Concentration Aura is the interrupt and silence effects reduction, 30% shorter, essentially on people within 40 yards of you. And there was a side note on Ret Aura that Aura Mastery from Holy Paladins increases the effectiveness and like buffs your auras. So what's weird about it is it's not working yet. It's not implemented, which makes it think that a Holy Paladin with Ret Aura up could pop wings and it'll give 50% more duration to the wings. but we can't test it, and it might fall off after the 8-second aura mastery. So it's just very, very strange. It also, it doesn't work with, but it might impact if you aura mastery and someone dies and you have red aura up. It might make that proc longer. I don't know. Maybe. I cannot see that any feasible use other than the fact that you might aura mastery with red aura up again in PvP. When you see people dying, you might get bigger wings or longer duration wings. Sorry. Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to test when certain things aren't working and that's not hooked up yet. But also, as you can see here, this is your one page of your actual ret abilities, and you're seeing that 2 things are missing. Because again, you wanted sacrifice back, you got it. Now kings and wisdom and might before it are all gone. So no more of your stagnant put up king, your little absorb shield and put up your mana return. They kept getting nerfed. I think kings got buffed a little bit, but remember when wisdom was both health and mana regeneration, and that got nerfed, and then might was really problematic in Legion, and that got removed from the game, just like Aspect of the Fox and Amplify Magic. F's in chat. But that's gone now, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. There's no more putting up Blessing of Kings and Wisdom. If you miss them, then there you go. But you've got freaking sacrifice vengeance shields now. You also saw as well Wake of Ashes' baseline, no longer a talent. It is a 3 holy power generator, and same 45-second cooldown, same big frontal cone swash, same 50% snare for 5 seconds. You see the debuff right there. It actually does more damage than a BFA counterpart. That hunter's going wild over there. Is the damage you see right now on live is 210% attack power. It's up to 315%. I was making some sleuthing to make sure I wasn't like missing if the aura was impactful here. But no, the aura is still minus 27% in BFA, and in alpha, currently, it's still minus 27%. So this could change. And when they even out your aura, they might, bring down Wake of Ashes from its attack power coefficient, but it'll still go up in damage because your aura won't be affecting it as anymore. But it does more damage on cast, which we'll kind of get back to this later when talent combinations come into play, because Wake of Ashes baseline and causing only 3 holy power does have this effect of when you weave it into the rotation properly, and because it does more damage in the overall dungeon run. Granted, I'm hitting AoE mobs here and there too. It was my 3rd-ish to 4th source of damage over the whole dungeon. We didn't get to finish the dungeon because the servers crashed, but we still got to like pull the last boss, and I blasted. But the one thing to note here, you see that little line out there, damage reduced on secondary targets. Still has the stun on undead and demons too. But the damage reduction there is the square root formula or law, whatever you want to call it. So what you'll see, 1647 will always hit your primary target, which I'll also caveat, make sure you have a primary target with Wake of Ashes. If you do not have a primary target and you don't have anything targeted, you will just do the cleave damage on everything. If you have a primary target, you will deal the tooltip damage, the radiant damage, and then you take that damage divided by the square root of all targets that are hit by the Wake of Ashes, and that is the damage that hits every other target in front of you. And it's still that kind of very thin cone. So you have to make sure, like I'm right next to this mob, but if I don't, like right there is like the draw line. If I was a little bit more this way, it may not have hit, right? It's definitely more of a cone of cold style breath of fire in front of you. It's not a half circle like say Crash Lightning is for enhancement. But keep that in mind. Make sure you have a target, because if you don't have a target, it will always do the fall off damage. If I see here, actually, let me double check. Yeah, see, I had the target dummy targeted for the radiant damage here. When it comes back up, I'll show if it doesn't automatically target. Sometimes you think like things automatically target, but it doesn't always work. I Wake of Ashes a whole bunch of mobs earlier today in the testing VOD, and all of them got hit by the fall off damage. There was no actual main hit. So if I just do that, so it still did on the target dummy. Interesting. Could be a dummy thing, because you can go back in the VOD when we were killing skeletons, and I did not get targeted hits working properly on actual mobs. But target dummies are also friendly, so certain things don't work on them and certain things are scuffed, and we'll see. Just take my word for it. You obviously always want to have a target, but that was one thing we noticed today that I was like, oh, whoops. I didn't know that was an interaction at all. It doesn't do that on live because on live it's just the hits everything in front of you for all the damage. Also, you got Consecration Baseline. Now this Consecration, same that Prot has and Holy has. Prot's is a reduced cooldown, so they can always have the cooldown up to be able to move in it. Your version has no damage fall off, hits everything within its area of effect for light ticking damage over 12 seconds. Consecration is the same sort of haste scaling, which I'm sorry, Death Knights. Calrel tested with me a bunch today and was talking about how D&D does not have any haste scaling interactions whatsoever, and he wishes it was like this. So Consecrate hits when you cast the ability, and then it will tick 12 times, once a second. Every 10% haste you have adds 1 tick. There was no partial ticks inside Consecration. It is just going to give you 1 tick on cast, plus 12, plus 1 every 10% haste. I have 14% haste right now, so if you want to count these up, there should be 13 ticks. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. That is 12 plus 1 plus 1. Well, you see, if I was a partial tick with the 4% here from the 10, you would see something else there, but nope. So I scaled up with both Inquisition and Seraphim to gain more haste, and I went from the base 13 ticks to 16 because I had 33% haste, adding 3 more ticks. It's really light damage. It is definitely very filler in the dungeon footage if you want to go back and watch that. I actually forgot I had it many pulls. I'm just not used to it because I don't talent it. It's a talent right now. You talent Wake of Ashes, duh. But this being baseline, very filler. It almost feels like you, in a way, you would sort of walk up to like an AoE pack and open with it to get it just on cooldown. Because then once you start, getting in there, doing your thing, blasting around and stuff like that, then it comes back up off cooldown when you have some dead time. Because Ret still has a little bit of dead time. And you'd cast it again and then sort of weave it in there and do your thing. Depending on Art of War procs and everything else, and maybe we'll get into more of Art of War here in a moment too. So you have some downtime. It's not going to be 100% uptime in your rotation, I do not think. But because it also deals H damage and does not have any damage fall off, it is supplementing a bit of your AoE. That is because, like I said before, Wake of Ashes, damage fall off, and additionally, you are target capped on your Glitter Storm. So Divine Storm is only 5 targets now. It only hits 5 targets. 4 full damage, but only hits 5 targets. We did some target testing on this as well with like 8 mobs, all with raid markers. It seems to always hit your primary target and then 4 other random mobs. So that's why, if you're using Execution Sentence and you're putting Judgment up, then you're sort of damage funneling in a way, because your main target will take the 20% more from Execution Sentence, the 20% more consuming the Judgment debuff, and then of course the other 4 targets will take the regular damage of Divine Storm. So it always hits your main target, or if you don't have a target, it just picks 5 random things. So weaving your Consecration baseline with Divine Storms and Wake of Ashes is sort of the overall kit and caboodle for your AoE rotation. If you did pay attention to that as well, the whole AoE row is gone from Ret, replaced by the Holy Power row right here on 40, which is the same for every single Paladin. You have all 3 of the same abilities right here because you're a Paladin. And how you interact with your Holy Power is different for your spells, but not different from your talents in this row. But that is sort of AoE, Wake of Ashes, baseline stuff, Consecration, how Consecrate scales. It should work like that on Death and Decay at least, and Defile for Death Knights. Maybe that'll be a thing. Could be a great suggestion to bring in there because it feels like it works very well. It's a break point instead of an actual partial scale with haste. But at least there's something there where you're not losing haste. And obviously it does holy damage, so it scales with your mastery, right? Hand of Light is still just holy damage. Weird little things. Blade of Justice copped a +1 second cooldown. It's 12 seconds base before haste, up from 11. Yikes. That's crazy. Oh, I didn't read this too. To go back track real quick at Divine Storm, it actually is 134% attack power, up from 111.4. So a little bit stronger on your Divine Storm, just a touch stronger. And that is also leading to a weird point that Wordup and I also talked about quite a bit. Crusader Strike, if you are this came up in chat today too. If you are a very seasoned Ret Paladin, you know that Crusader Strike hits for less damage than an auto attack. And at first glance, I mean, it does more on the tooltip, but armor, PvE armor, by the way, LOL, it's reduced by 30%, right? And it's physical damage. The one thing that definitely came to mind, and to put it in perspective, is that Crusader Strike essentially also deals 1 holy power worth of damage. And that is where it's sort of balanced at. Now, I agree in a way. If it's going to be that close to an auto attack, just make it the same, whatever the math needs to be, where it's just basically the exact same damage as an auto attack. That it just looks funny to auto attack for 208 and then use a special attack and hit for 197. It's so close together. It's just kind of like, but why though? So if Crusader Strike gets buffed up by like 2 or 3% attack power, it would even out. But then Wordup brought up a very interesting point, that because it is 33.3% repeating, of course, of a charge of both Divine Storm, which hits 5 targets, and Templar's Verdict, your big chonky single target holy damage, ignore armor, blast, scale with your Hand of Light, scale with your Judgment Window, blah blah blah. Well, Judgment debuff really. It deals you're building towards that. So if they made Crusader Strike hit harder, they'd probably, in this case being Blizzard, would probably remove damage from TV or Divine Storm. And I don't think you'd want that. Maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe a little bit more would be a fine thing. The overall narrative, of course, about Retribution Paladins, that does a lot of damage during its cooldowns, which I turn around to say that there are other classes and specs that don't do any damage with their cooldowns. They do the same thing over and over again. So having a really strong cooldown window, and as you'll slowly see here in a minute, is that Ret has big cooldown windows, like even bigger cooldown windows coming. So yeah, we'll see. There is also a slight feedback post in the description box down below about what you're seeing right there with Seraphim and Inquisition existing. But let's get into talents then. So talents removed. Word of Glory. It's a baseline now. It is hilariously weaker than the talented version. It is very, very I guess. I mean, obviously it'll sync up with things like Divine Purpose. It'll obviously do more when you're in a Wings window or a Crusade window. You'll be able to actually do crazy things with it with Holy Avenger, because you can do Holy Avenger is triple your holy power generation for 20 seconds on a 3-minute cooldown, which again, I'll show this off because this gets a little silly. Is you'll be able to really just put down one builder, then Word of Glory, one builder, Word of Glory, one builder, Word of Glory, one builder, Word of Glory. So I think that's kind of why it got gutted in a way. But Word of Glory is now across all paladins, and they interact with it differently. Prost dealing the increased healing based on missing health. They can talent into it to keep that on any target. And then there is that it's essentially the free, because holy power, it's mana free instant heal for the holy paladin, instead of using their holy, unless they use it on, of course, their AoE heal. But that's there. And we have Hammer of Wrath, of course, baseline. Divine Judgment is gone. Consecration baseline. Wake of Ashes. Ashes? Yeah. Ashes baseline. As far as that hasn't happened more often. Talents added. Empyrean Power. It's tied to Crusader Strike. 20% chance on your Crusader Strikes to make your next Divine Storm free and deal 50% additional damage. This is your Azerite trait right now, even though the Azerite trait is just flat additional, like a numerical value. So this now has, of course, it's a talent, so it scales, and it'll scale with everything else that happens in the whole freaking game. Holy Avenger, as I said before, big 3-minute cooldown, huge holy power generation. Seraphim, same as what you've seen if you played Prot ever before. It might make you want to delay Seraphim to make it a 1-minute cooldown to hit it with every single Wings window, if that becomes a thing earlier on in the expansion. Maybe. Healing Hands. This is if you lay on hands someone when they're under 30% health, it cuts the cooldown of LOH in half. Doesn't work. It's currently NYI. It could stack with Unbreakable Spirit, giving you a 3.5 minute cooldown on lay on hands. Maybe huge for PvP, huge for raids. It's basically a tank cooldown from the Ret Paladin. Again, utility. So that's still there. Justicar's Vengeance is still kind of poo-poo pants. Selfless Healer, unchanged. Also, I'm not going to show this off. If you can watch the dungeon VOD, you'll see it there. Sanctified Wrath. This is the holy talent. Now it's, of course, across all of the paladins. But the version for Retribution is that Avenging Wrath will last 25% longer, which currently is 5 seconds longer. And each holy power spent will cause you to explode with holy light for holy damage to nearby enemies. No damage fall off. It hits everything around you. It deals the 94 damage you see there per holy power used. So yes, it would make Justicar's Vengeance eat 5 holy power to kind of do something, maybe. But Justicar's Vengeance is weaker than Templar's Verdict, so PvP again, maybe. But Sanctified Wrath is like big extra AoE for free inside your AoE window if you're, combining it with. Obviously, I have Crusade talented right now, but if you had Avenging Wrath, baseline, when you're in the AW window and you get that first, critical strike guaranteed Glitter Storm, and then if you get Empyrean Power procs potentially, and your Sanctified Wrath just popping off on every single time, and you've got Holy Avenger going, which again we'll slam here with Crusade, is you just radiate holy damage over and over and over and over and over again. And the only weird one here I think is still Inquisition. I think Seraphim works way better in this tier as like your rotational maintenance talent. Inquisition though, it's really strong early in the expansion, then it falls off, but trying to juggle Inquisition and Seraphim uptimes, maybe That forum post talks about it. The blue post recognize that it's kind of weird. They don't know which one to get rid of. My camp is in Inquisition because Wake being baseline, I would say bring back, what's it called? Bring back the Ashes to Ashes, which is the dot on your Wake of Ashes. As a passive, right? Because these are both like transformative in some way. If you want a passive for your core ability, make the dot come back maybe, and then potentially give it the Echo of the High Lord, that it echoes your base abilities. If you don't want to take something that interacts with your actual main cooldowns, if that you want that from a player, or you want the animations back for whatever reason, that's my suggestion to change out Inquisition. But Righteous Verdict, Empyrean Power, Holy Avenger, Crusade, what does that look like? And I'll tell you what, back on the Wake of Ashes thing real quick too. If you have Sanctified Wrath or Inquisition, you can open with Wake of Ashes. But if you have Crusade, you want to delay it until your actual Crusade is stacked. So it'll be weird like how you open on a boss, for example. But you could just pop both in a row. And you've got Hammer into Blammo, into Judge, into Blammo, into Wham, into Blammo, into this, into Blammo, into that, into this. Crusade stack. Let's start one of these out here. And let's just, you're going to blast Holy Power so much that you're almost like, it's just overflowing, right? And one more. Ah, dang. So, I mean, that, just hitting things. My brain just couldn't say anything but Blammo for some reason. We're going to hold this Empyrean Power proc real quick for a Judgment window, because it deals more damage than a Templar's Verdict. Only if it's procced. A Divine Purpose Templar's Verdict deals more damage than a Divine Purpose Glitter Storm. But a Empyrean Power proc Glitter Storm is way more damage than a Templar's Verdict. So a little bit of juggling motion there, which is fun. And then to go back on the Art of War change, now that Art of War is no longer RPPM, it only is it's a chance per auto attack. Things like Wind Fury Totem will scale even better with you because extra auto attacks. Zeal now makes you auto attack faster, giving you more Art of War, making Blade of Wrath, obviously doubling your Art of War proc chance to sort of smooth out or give you extra buttons to hit. But obviously Empyrean Power comes from Crusader Strike, and Fires of Justice gives you the less holy power usage there, which allows you to just, more casually use the Righteous Verdict window. With Sanctified Wrath, can't talent it right now. With Sanctified Wrath, I was doing things in the testing VOD where you could easily hit a Templar's Verdict. You could build to 5 because you'll have so much in the Holy Avenger window, or normally you build to 5 and you go into Sanctified Wrath and you can hit Templar's Verdict. If you have a Fires of Justice proc in there, you can Templar's Verdict again. So there's 2 explosions of Sanctified Wrath, followed up by Awake of Ashes and another Templar's Verdict for another explosion into 1 Judgment into another Templar's Verdict, all inside this window, all inside because of potential procs here with Fires. Or you can put that all into an Execution Sentence window with Empyrean Power procs, and you can hope for Divine Purpose, or you can buff yourself up with Seraphim, or you can smooth cruise control it with Seraphim and Inquisition. Like, there's the overall rant here is that Retribution Paladin for a long time has always been, you know, I do so much damage in my DPS window, and then I'm really, really weak outside of it. And that is still going to be true. And if not, it's going to be not worse, but even stronger, because you have the options to do so and to be stronger in those windows. Now, that's not going to be for every Retribution Paladin, but if you have the potential to do that, it is very fight dependent. It's very situational. It's very what you're doing with your current content. And if you want to just cruise control it where you feel stronger outside of it, you can run things like Inquisition and Seraphim. It might feel a little bit, you know, juggly, but if you don't want to feel like all your damage is only in your AW window or only with Avenging Wrath combining with it, even by default, Avenging Wrath and Holy Avenger desync anyway. So you could have your 0, 2, 4, 6, 8 cooldowns, and then you have your 0, 3, 6, 9, 12 cooldowns depending on fight time. But again, you might delay Avenging Wrath to sync up always with Holy Avenger if the fight, you know, calls for it, because combining with things like Execution Sentence, hoping for Empyrean Power procs in this window will be huge. 30% more damage on 50% more damage on 20% more damage, and then on, of course, 20% more damage, or 25, sorry, is there's a lot there that you can really tunnel into a mob and either play with the more AoE build. You can obviously run with Empyrean Power. You can run Zeal to get your Art of War procs, Divine Purpose for that smoothness, and then of course Sanctified Wrath on 2 minutes. You just AW, and then as you're AoEing, you're also AoEing. There's a lot going on here. And I think this is one of this and Protection have some of the cleanest transitions, I think, for moving things forward that really work really well in BFA, and even going back to Legion now, because again, Wake, and keeping them in the core of the class because it just feels good. And I hope they do this with other classes, like Mage and Warlock need something. But that is the Retribution Paladin. We got there. Again, if you want to support what I do here directly, in a more physical sense than just clicking the like button or subscribing to the YouTube channel, I got the links down below if you're looking for any bits and bobs and pieces and parts from Corsair. I've been a Corsair fangirl for longer than I even was been signed with them. I've been enjoying their products for a very long time, and I highly recommend if you're looking for a new keyboard, new mouse, new headset. Pikachu behind me is literally sitting on a Corsair box. It's right there. You see the little lot. It's right there. So thank you very much for listening, hanging out, watching. Give me your thoughts down below on what you think about Ret. I've heard some dissension about how it feels slow, but we're in crappy gear right now. It's the beginning of the expansion. We don't even have all the systems yet. So also it's supposed to be kind of slow by design because you need some GCDs free to heal someone or throw out a stun or slow something or move, or Consecrate now fills that role, or dispel someone or throw a heal or whatever, right? It's supposed to have a little bit of openness in the rotation to fear something and then pull more mobs. Thank you very much for listening and watching and hanging out. I will see you all in the next Shadowlands Alpha First Pass video. We've got Holy Paladin coming up next.